This Family Life News podcast is made possible by the support of listeners like you.
It's the Noon Report from Family Life, bringing a Christian worldview to what's happening in New York, Pennsylvania, across the country, and around the world. Weather with Kevin Williams, plus special features and reports with the Family Life News team. Now, here's what's happening.
Good afternoon. Thanks for joining us. Another legislative win for President Trump. The DOJ-related rescissions package won final approval in Congress last night. That clawback effort reduces spending on everything from public broadcasting to global health to foreign aid. House Speaker Mike Johnson.
I'm delighted to send that over to the President's desk for signature. We clawed back $9 billion in taxpayer funds and wasteful spending, so we'll continue to do that. We're going to downsize the scope of government. Government is too large, it does too many things, and it does almost nothing well.
Chad Pergram at Fox News.
There were no Democrats who voted for this, and there were two Republican no's, Mike Turner, Republican of Ohio, and also Brian Fitzpatrick, a Republican of Pennsylvania. Both of them have been big defenders of certain foreign aid programs, in particular some of the aid going to Ukraine. This now goes to President Trump for him to sign. They've not used a maneuver like this to kind of cancel this spending ex post facto in 30 years, but they have been successful. This might be the first of several different rescissions opportunities by the Trump administration to try to claw back some of this money.
Democrats fear the rescissions package will hurt rural areas that depend on public broadcasting for their news. There's also concern steep cuts to groups like UNICEF will hurt humanitarian relief efforts around the world. President Trump signs the Genius Act today. It's the first piece of legislation that regulates cryptocurrency. The signing ceremony marks a watershed moment for the digital asset industry, which poured millions into last year's election to promote pro-crypto candidates. The Trump administration will begin sharing the personal information of 79 million Medicaid recipients with immigration authorities.
ICE and HHS have brokered an agreement to allow immigration authorities to access Medicaid information for the purposes of immigration enforcement, to identify and arrest people who are suspected of being in the country illegally.
CBS News correspondent Camilo Montoya Galvez. President Trump says he is serious about reopening Alcatraz as a federal prison off the coast of San Francisco.
This was an idea of the president, and he directed his administration to review a reopening plan for Alcatraz.
Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt on who she thinks should be sent to Alcatraz.
The worst of the worst criminals in this country, both American criminals, but also illegal alien criminals before deportation as well.
San Francisco Mayor Daniel Lurie.
There's no realistic plan to make Alcatraz reopen as anything other than a wonderful tourist attraction that it currently is.
Former House Speaker and San Francisco native Nancy Pelosi.
Do not consider changing Alcatraz into a prison as being tough on crime. So it's just a waste. It's silly. It's foolish.
Attorney General Pam Bondi took a 1-hour tour of Alcatraz yesterday. The Rock, as it's known, has been closed as a federal prison since the early 1960s. President Trump has chronic venous insufficiency, or swelling of the legs. It's a condition that's common in people over 70. President Trump is 79. NBC News medical correspondent Dr. John Torres.
This is one of those things that is a benign condition, but if it's not taken care of, you can get ulcerations in the leg, and those ulcers that can develop can be very hard to treat.
Dr. Torres says putting your feet up and wearing compression socks helps alleviate the swelling that's often associated with chronic venous insufficiency. Florida's Surgeon General wants the feds to study injuries caused by the COVID vaccine.
This is a terrible tragedy that is still happening.
Dr. Joseph Ladipo wants research into vaccine side effects.
I want to call on the federal government, NIH, to expand the work that they are doing in long COVID to genuinely and wholly include vaccine-injured people.
Florida was the first state to officially oppose recommended COVID shots for healthy people. A 61-year-old Long Island man in critical condition today after walking into an exam room during an MRI. He was pulled into that machine by his chain necklace. Chuck Winterfeld is an MRI specialist at nearby North Shore Hospital.
It would act like a torpedo trying to get into the middle of the center of the magnet.
The National Institute of Biomedical Imaging says the magnetic force of an MRI machine is strong enough to fling a wheelchair across the room. CBS is pulling the plug on The Late Show, which started with funny man David Letterman back in 1993. Current host Stephen Colbert told his studio audience last night that the final Late Show will air next May.
The network will be ending The Late Show in May. And yeah, I share your feelings. It's not just the end of our show, but it's the end of The Late Show on CBS. I'm not being replaced. This is all just going away.
The Late Show's been number one in late-night TV for the past 9 years. CBS says due to financial reasons, it will be ending the show's 32-year run next year. The man who broke the world record for the highest skydive when he jumped from the edge of space, that man has died. Police in Italy say Felix Baumgartner was killed in a paragliding accident yesterday. Back in 2012, Baumgartner became the first skydiver to break the sound barrier when he jumped from a balloon 24 miles above Earth. Felix Baumgartner was 56. Still to come on the Noon Report, career criminal captured in car chase, Wellsville balloon rally, and college costs in Pennsylvania.
Good afternoon. I'm Kevin Williams. A fine Friday underway. The weekend weather news is mixed. I'll have forecast details coming up. It's the end of about 10 minutes.
All right, Kevin, we'll see you then. Let's check the stories making news across New York and Pennsylvania. A career criminal is in custody in Buffalo following a high-speed police chase and a fiery crash on the New York State Thruway. It happened yesterday. 49-year-old Ricky Crouch was ejected from his vehicle after slamming into another vehicle on eastbound I-90 in Hamburg. Sam Bluff witnessed that chase. He spoke to WIVB.
These cops are speeding past at what I would say was over 100. It had to have been over 100 miles per hour. And we saw tons of flashing lights. At one point, I actually, in one of the medians, had seen state troopers bent over. It looked like they were pulling something like rifles or something, or maybe stop straps, I'm not sure, out of a bag on the ground.
Just hours before that high-speed chase, Crouch was suspected of fatally shooting his girlfriend, Amanda Thompson. He'd already spent several years in prison in connection with a murder that happened in 1997, but Crouch was released early in 2023 due to bail reform.
When we talk about the criminal justice system in this country, yeah, there's some changes that need to be made, but some of the actions that took place with the New York State Legislature 4 or 5 years ago have made our community less safe, and there's no denying that.
Buffalo Mayor Chris Scanlon hopes yesterday's tragedy will motivate Albany lawmakers to rein in bail reform.
We've seen too many of them where, despite someone's repeated lack of adherence to the law, is able to roam around our community as if nothing's wrong. But if something like this doesn't motivate them to make changes that are necessary, I'm not quite sure what will.
Mayor Scanlon says Ricky Crouch should have never been allowed back on the streets following his arrest in 1997, and a young woman in Buffalo is dead today because of that decision, says the mayor. The Pennsylvania system of higher education is planning to increase tuition for the first time in 7 years. The Board of Governors announcing a tuition hike of $139 a semester at all its 14 campuses. However, the board says the increase could be revoked if they receive sufficient funding from the state in the new state budget, which is still in limbo. Over 82,000 students attend a state university in Pennsylvania. Almost 90% of them are from Pennsylvania. New York Governor Kathy Hochul says ICE agents who wear masks while making arrests are, in her words, intimidating. Hochul adds she could get behind legislation that would force those agents to take off their masks while making arrests.
You don't create this climate of intimidation by donning a mask, not identifying yourself, and literally terrorizing people.
U.S. Attorney Bill Asaley says those who demagogue the immigration enforcement issue are putting law enforcement officials at risk.
They want to discredit, dehumanize our federal agents. This is part of the narrative because of reckless rhetoric like this, fake narratives about kidnapping that are repeated by politicians and the media is causing these assaults on our agents.
New York's Attorney General Tish James is leading the charge to force ICE agents to remove their masks. Agents keep their faces covered to protect themselves from doxing or even worse, assaults. Attacks on ICE agents are up more than 800% from last year. New York's SHIELD law is preventing an Ulster County abortion doctor from being prosecuted by the state of Texas. That doctor in New Paltz shipped abortion drugs to a woman in Texas in violation of Texas state law, which forbids abortifacients from out of state. The Ulster County clerk, however, has dismissed the lawsuit from the Texas Attorney General. The court battle over SHIELD laws will likely wind up at the U.S. Supreme Court. Experts are sounding the alarm about insect-borne illnesses. Cases of the West Nile virus and Triple E are popping up in central New York. Symptoms include
fever, body aches, joint aches, muscle aches, sometimes nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, headaches, confusion.
Dr. Jim Alexander's the medical director of the Onondaga County Health Department. This week, that county reported its first human case of West Nile in more than 5 years. Proposed legislation in Congress could change how self-driving cars operate all over the country, including New York and Pennsylvania. Congressman Kevin Mullen has introduced a bill that would improve oversight of the autonomous vehicle industry.
There's great promise with this technology to actually reduce pedestrian fatalities, auto accidents, but we need to make sure that this technology is transparent, there's accountability.
His bill would require driverless car companies provide information on how far their vehicles travel and how often they make sudden stops that disrupt police, emergency services, and public transit. The skies over Wellsville are bursting in color today. This year marks the 50th anniversary of the Great Wellsville Balloon Rally. More than 30 hot air balloons are taking flight from Island Park. That free festival draws thousands of visitors every year to Allegheny County, New York. It ends with a sunrise send-off on Sunday. What a sight that will be. The Buffalo Sky Ride happens this weekend. Family Life's Dee Haley has a preview.
There will be some early morning road closures this Sunday as the 11th Buffalo Sky Ride brings bicyclists to the Skyway. In previous years, the event route took riders on a looping path along the Skyway. This year, the event will include a portion of I-190. The New York State Department of Transportation has announced that the Skyway between Church Street and Ridge Road and I-190 southbound exit ramp to the Skyway will be closed Sunday from 6 a.m. until noon. I-190 northbound on-ramps at Church Street and Oak Street and between Elm Street and Porter Avenue will close from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. Organizers expect about 1,500 riders to participate. Dee Haley, Family Life News.
Thank you, Dane. Sports. The Pittsburgh Steelers have signed All-Pro pass rusher T.J. Watt to a record-setting 3-year deal worth $123 million. Watt becomes the NFL's highest-paid defensive man as well as the highest-paid non-quarterback in league history. There may be some clarification coming in regards to the employment status of college athletes.
President Trump is considering an executive order that would require federal authorities to clarify whether college athletes can be considered employees of their schools. A draft copy of the order states that the employment status of college athletes should maximize the educational benefits and opportunities the schools can provide through their athletic departments. I'm Mark Mayfield.
And the second half of the Major League Baseball season starts tonight. The Detroit Tigers come out of the All-Star break with the best record in the bigs. The Toronto Blue Jays are 2 games up on the New York Yankees in the AL East. The Philadelphia Phillies hold a half-game lead over the New York Mets in the NL East. The Phillies host the Dodgers tonight. The Mets are at home against the Reds. The Yankees will travel to Atlanta. And the Pirates, they play baseball too. Pittsburgh hosting the White Sox for a 3-game stint at beautiful PNC Park. Still to come on the Noon Report, a Friday edition. The Jimmy Stewart Museum Classic Car Show rolls into Syracuse. And Kev's got your weekend weather right after this.
Welcome to Breakpoint, a daily look at an ever-changing culture through the lens of unchanging truth. For the Colson Center, I'm John Stone Street. Well, each year, as fireworks light up the sky on the 4th of July, social media also lights up, with angry pet owners pleading against them. On July 5th, ABC 10 News in San Diego reported that the local Humane Society had already picked up over 100 stray animals, most of them dogs, frightened away from their homes by the loud explosions. One employee told reporters she anticipated that number to quadruple in the coming days. Now, the increased concern over how pyrotechnics affects pets is understandable, but it's also partly due to Americans having way more pets than ever before. Since 2023, the number of dogs has increased by over 3 million, putting the nation's total of domestic canines at over 68 million. At the same time, pet medication has become a lucrative medical industry. The pet supply website Chewy.com lists 10 most common medications for paranoid pups. And according to a 2016 study, 83% of vets prescribed anxiety meds for dogs as a standard part of their practice. And all of that, of course, coincides with the explosion of mental health diagnoses and therapy speak among humans, as described, for instance, in Abigail Schreier's book, Bad Therapy. So it at least must be possible that some pet owners are projecting their own mental struggles onto their pets. For instance, it's super interesting that liberal political beliefs have been shown to strongly correlate with mental health diagnoses. Is it little surprise then, as noted in The Atlantic, that vet behaviorists are now mostly clustered in liberal areas? Many apparently assume that since their psychiatrist helps them cope with medication, the same can be done for their dogs. The press, of course, has pounced on this idea. In a 2022 New York Times piece entitled Puppies on Prozac, owners were told how to spot the signs of anxiety and other mental disorders in their pets. The article described undesirable animal behaviors as mental illness instead of being a sign of insufficient training. Now, the worldview assumption at work here is that if human emotional and spiritual problems can be solved by a prescription, so can Fido's. This all results from a culture that both promotes animals to human-like status and demotes humans to highly evolved animal status. Anthropomorphizing animals causes owners to interpret their behaviors as something more than just instinct or conditioning, and Darwinizing humans has long justified eliminating unwanted people just as we would animal pests. The result is a culture in which both dogs and humans are treated in remarkably similar and remarkably inappropriate ways. And that's why so many more people now refer to their pets as children. Back in 2023, in The Atlantic, Rose Horowitz proposed that might be what's actually driving our animals crazy. Quote, as Americans have fewer kids, they've begun to think of their pets as children and to act as helicopter fur parents. In short, cramming an animal into a crate in an apartment for hour upon hour each day may not be what's best for them. More fundamentally, the emotional demands made by increasingly isolated people on pets might be too much for them. Ironically, all of the increased American sentimentality toward pets just may not be good for them. Animals are wonderful. Our connections with them are real and deep, but they cannot fill the human need for human friendship, human love, human solace. And certainly, that God-shaped hole in all of our hearts will never be filled by a pet. For the Colson Center, I'm John Stone Street with Breakpoint.
Thank you, John. Outside we go next, Kevin Williams.
Here is your family life weather forecast. The call for this afternoon, sunny, pleasant, much less humid than recent days. High in the 70s to near 80. Clear and pleasant tonight. Low temps in the 50s to near 60. Patchy valley fog late. Tomorrow, sunshine for most. Could be a shower or thunder shower near and south of I-80 in Pennsylvania. High temps, low 80s. Humid with some showers and rumbles tomorrow night into Sunday. High temperature Sunday, 70s to near 80.
All right, feel good out there today. Refreshing breeze indeed. Thank you, Kevin. It's Friday, folks, the 18th of July. And this is the Noon Report on Family Life.
He was a famous actor, a war hero, but never stopped being just a small-town guy from Pennsylvania. Welcome to Family Life Staycations, a summertime feature where we highlight great places to visit around the Family Life listening area. I'm Mark Webster, and this week we're off to the Jimmy Stewart Museum in Indiana, Pennsylvania.
I wouldn't give you 2 cents for all your fancy rules if behind them they didn't have a little bit of plain, ordinary, everyday kindness. And a little looking out for the other fella, too.
Clip from Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, a movie role that captured a bit of the real Jimmy Stewart, famous but ever humble. That spirit is also captured at the Jimmy Stewart Museum in his hometown of Indiana, PA, where Janie McCurgan is the executive director. This is an extra special year, as I understand it, for the museum, your 30th anniversary.
It is.
That's quite a run. Take us back to the beginning, though. How did the Jimmy Stewart Museum get its start?
Well, there was some people in town that wanted a museum here and went out and got a meeting with Jimmy Stewart. And at first he said, who's going to want to see a museum about me? But eventually he said, okay, I'll agree to it on 2 conditions. One, that it be humble in size, and 2, that it be in the heart of Indiana, his hometown, so it economically benefits his hometown. So what's great about it, it's a gift that keeps giving. We have about 7,000 people that come every year from different countries and all 50 states. Actually, we're doing really well, and he gave us this great gift that really supports his hometown that he loves so much.
That's so Jimmy Stewart, if you will, so humble that he's like, why would you want a museum about me? But that just kind of defined his character. Most people know him for all of his famous movies, It's a Wonderful Life, Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, and so on. It's like an endless list, but we'll talk about that first. He was just so amazing for his versatility in front of the camera. Some have likened him to Tom Hanks, who is maybe a more modern-day version, and the ability to play so many different roles so well.
Oh, I agree. He, early in his career, he did a lot of romantic comedies, and so they started out more lighthearted, but then he went in and did 4 Hitchcock, suspense movies. Mm-hmm. He played real-life people. He did a ton of really gritty westerns. He kind of could do it all. I think that goes to show of his longevity of making almost 80 films.
Yeah, and so many of them were popular, too. Beyond Hollywood, there was so much more to Jimmy Stewart, the man, who, despite all the fame, as we mentioned, just never seemed to lose that small-town humility.
He didn't. His dad was a big influence on him, the importance of community and hard work and really doing your all and helping others. I mean, he was a big humanitarian, but we never knew that until really after he died because he didn't want his name attached to any of the donations or things he did behind the scenes. But then he was also a World War II hero, and he didn't even have to be. He was drafted, and he got out of the draft because he was too skinny, and he went back and enlisted.
Yeah, we'll get into that maybe a little bit, too. Let's take a little theater of the mind tour around the museum now. Let's start with Indiana. I know there's a gallery devoted to that, and just how Jimmy Stewart got his start in life.
Absolutely. It starts a lot with history of the country during Jimmy Stewart's life woven throughout the whole museum. So you'll get a little slice of American history. But it starts out with some of his relatives way back to his great-great-great-great-grandfather who fought in the Civil War. And then it gets into his parents and his 2 sisters and him growing up here in Indiana. And a big part of that was his father's hardware store, which was a big, huge, iconic building here in town where you could buy almost anything there. And Jimmy Stewart did work there when he was young. So we have a lot of things from the hardware store. And then we also cover his schooling from Indiana Normal School to Mercersburg Academy through Princeton. So there's a lot packed into the Indiana Gallery, but some great family photos, some great stories, and you'll learn a lot about the man before he became famous.
Mm-hmm. Let's talk about that military service. What led him to do that? You touched on it a little bit about how he enlisted, even though he didn't have to, but he wanted to.
Right. Well, he had a long line of people in his background, in his family, that all served back to the Revolutionary Revolutionary War. His father served in the Spanish-American War in World War I, and people between those two. So there was a long line of history of Stewart's fighting in the war. And at this point, Jimmy Stewart was a good pilot. He had taken flying lessons, and he continued to do so in Hollywood. So he was very skilled at that. And he knew he wanted to do his part. He wanted to fight for his country. And so because he was turned down for being too skinny during the draft, he went and ate a bunch of food and then came back with a doctor's note that just said, this is just the way this gentleman is built, and got in. He was almost 2 years away from being too old to serve. And they kept him stateside for a long time because he had just won the Oscar for Philadelphia Story, and they didn't want anybody like Germany to kill him because that would have been a big kudo for them, and he was very famous at the time. So they kept him stateside, but he kept saying, I want to fight, I want to do my share. And eventually they needed him, and he was also very skilled. He was training pilots stateside. And then he went over stationed on England, and he really flew about 20 combat missions, really dangerous ones over Germany, Nazi Germany.
Yeah, not a military career for show.
Oh, no, he really did it. And he's got the medals to prove he was one of the most highly decorated Hollywood stars that served. We have 4 uniforms. We have most of his medals, a lot of great stories and photos about his time in the service. And he really felt like it was one of the most important things he did. And if he came back and his acting career wasn't there anymore, he would have been okay with that.
Absolutely. A lot of people might not know this aspect of his life. There's a tribute there in that gallery to Stewart's stepson, who died in Vietnam.
Yeah. So his stepson was serving in Vietnam. Jimmy Stewart and his wife Gloria had just visited there a week before to boost troop morale, and then he got killed in action, which is really sad. That was a tough one on him.
Oh, for sure. Let's go to happier thoughts then. The Hollywood gallery that's there. How do you even cram such a large career into one gallery? It's just so many movies.
Well, we have this big circular gallery that goes around our 50-seat theater. So we have a theater in the museum that shows different matinee each week at 1 o'clock, except for at Christmas time we show It's a Wonderful Life for 6 weeks because everybody wants to see that. But yeah, so we also show biographies in the morning, but all the way around is this big circular gallery that covers, it's got scripts and movie posters and photos and costumes and props and awards. So we really cover, I think, all of his films with original posters. I mean, it's really fascinating to go through some of these movies. And then we have little stories about some of the more important movies and what they did for the history of Hollywood. Like in Winchester 73, he wanted to get paid $200,000, and the producers said, we can't afford you. So he went back with his agent, and they came back and said, okay, we want a cut of the proceeds. That had never been done before. He ended up making $800,000, and then everybody lined up for that deal in Hollywood. So he was the first one to get a cut of the proceeds.
Very savvy move on his part. One thing I think maybe younger visitors might enjoy is Jimmy's boyhood bedroom.
Yeah, we have the bed that he actually slept in as a child. We have photos from when he was little, even a piece of his algebra homework. We also have a lot about the Boy Scouts back there because he was a Boy Scout and a big supporter of the Boy Scouts. And the other thing is the only other movie poster that is not in the Hollywood Gallery, there's one in the boyhood bedroom, and it's The Spirit of St. Louis. And it's because when he was a boy, he was bedridden with scarlet fever, and that's when he was flying across the Atlantic. And Jimmy Stewart followed his flight. He was fascinated with Lindbergh, and he made a little diorama moving this little plane across the Atlantic Ocean. So we have stories about that in the boyhood bedroom because it happened when he was a boy.
Eventually plays that role on the screen.
He did. He really had to mark it hard because people thought he was a little too old for that role, but he really wanted to play that. He was his aviation hero.
You, as I understand, show Jimmy Stewart movies every day there.
We do. We show one, and it's including your admission. You have to pay extra for it. So we show a movie every day. A couple of years ago, we refurbished the speakers and the screen and a new digital projector. We got a bunch of sponsors to help us update it. So it's as good as you can see an old movie. Let's put it that. Because not all of them were filmed in surround sound. But it's a great experience being surrounded by all of Jimmy Stewart's things. And it's really neat to have people come in. And some people get a membership and they come in often, like every week, to see a movie. So it's very cool. And we also have his California office. We have a gallery of that. His desk, all his business things and awards, the auto pen he used to use when he got older to sign autographs, and letters from presidents and Frank Capra, some really cool letters on the wall. So that's really nice. We have a hallway for his radio career, and we have a hallway that's a rotating gallery that changes 4 times a year. Of course, at Christmas, it's always It's a Wonderful Life exhibit. But right now, we have an exhibit on his P-51 Mustang, which we just had in for our 30th anniversary. And this plane, it's Jimmy Stewart's plane, has a fascinating history. He won the Bendix Trophy, which is a race, across America, but he also sold it to Jackie Cochran, who was the first female pilot to break the sound barrier, and she's got a cool history of this plane. And then this plane also was the one that flew the coronation tapes of Queen Elizabeth II across the Atlantic so we in America could see the footage the same day it happened.
So much packed into one museum, so much packed into one life.
Absolutely.
Give us the particulars, admission, hours, where you're located.
We are located right on Philadelphia Street, 835 Philadelphia Street. We are open Monday through Saturday, 10 to 4, and on Sunday, 12 to 4, except for some major holidays. It's above the library, so it looks deceiving. It looks really small. When you come in, we've got 6 galleries and a lot of stuff, and 80% of it is Jimmy Stewart hand-picked for us to display in his museum, which is cool. And then everything in town, we've got a map that you can either drive or walk to see where he was born, his boyhood home, the statue in his honor, the church, his grandparents' house, and then you can drive out to our airport that has his Cessna 310 personal airplane on a pedestal, and it rotates in the wind, and the propellers go, and a wingtip and taillights light up at night.
Janie, I appreciate it. To borrow from that certain movie, it's been a wonderful interview.
Oh, well, thank you very much.
Janie McCurgan with the Jimmy Stewart Museum in Indiana, Pennsylvania. And this has been Family Life Staycations, a weekly summertime feature highlighting great places to visit around the Family Life listening area. Please join us again next time as we hit the road for another Family Life Staycation. Come on!
Oh, I can't wait to see where we go next. Thank you very much, Mark. You can download all our staycation destinations, by the way, at Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or our website, familylife.org.
Good afternoon. Here is your Family Life regional weather forecast. Well, cold front has cleared the region, now draped across the southern and central mid-Atlantic region. And for us, high pressure is now in control from Michigan, and the result here is a nice-looking day and a fine night tonight. Now, that high will start the weekend on a nice note, but another front will arrive with humidity, showers, and rumbles later in the weekend. The call for this afternoon, sunny, pleasant, much less humid than recent days, high in the 70s to near 80. Clear and pleasant tonight, low temps in the 50s to near 60, patchy valley fog late. Tomorrow, sunshine for most. Could be a shower or thunder shower near and south of I-80 in Pennsylvania. High temps, low 80s. Humid with some showers and rumbles tomorrow night into Sunday. High temperature Sunday, 70s to near 80.
Thank you very much, Kevin. Before we go, we should mention the largest car show in the Northeast is now underway in central New York. It's called the Syracuse Nationals, and this year marks the 25th anniversary at the New York State Fairgrounds. The classic car show will run through Sunday.
So anybody that's coming out to look at cars, they're gonna get their money's worth, definitely. But the entertainment, all the awards, it's over the top this year.
Sure is. Syracuse Nationals co-owner Grazi Zazzara.
This year we're really pushing on the free for the kids. We're trying to get an influx of younger generation here. We got the Scooby-Doo car, we got the Batmobile.
More than 7,000 classic cars will be on display all weekend long at the fairgrounds. Nearly 100,000 people expected to attend the Syracuse Nationals Car Show this year. And that's our world, the world we live in. Friday, July 18th. Have a wonderful weekend. I'm Bob Price, Family Life News.
You've been listening to the Noon Report, heard weekdays on Family Life. Thank you for listening.
Thank you for listening to this Family Life News podcast. If you've been encouraged by what you've heard, please share it with others and click the subscribe button to automatically receive future episodes. Family Life is a listener-supported ministry. Podcasts like this are made possible by your financial partnership. Find out more at familylife.org.